Today's thumbnail was designed by Diana Andrea. Check out her link in the description for more talented designs. Psychos can hide in plain sight. This world is a strange one. Have you ever wished that you could read people's minds? You could know what they're thinking, or maybe what they're planning. I don't think people realize what that might mean. Could you imagine hearing the voice of someone who desires to commit untold horrors to you and fights every day to keep those demons at bay? How do you fight back against someone who hasn't done anything wrong yet? There's no telling when they will finally break. Tonight, I will share with you 6 true stalker scary stories that show us what happens when creepy people indulge their demons and get a little too close for comfort. Before we start, I want to give a shout out to Victor L. and Donald S. for donating to our cause. Thanks for being badasses. Now, without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to these nightmares. Number 1. Creepy Stalker at the Bus Station. Submitted by Susanna 18. Here's a little background before I start. I am an 18-year-old female college freshman in Culver City. This happened about 3 months ago during summer. I remember it happened on a Wednesday afternoon. At the time, I had just finished high school, so I felt it was time for me to relax before I went off to college. I lived in a neighborhood where there were a lot of drug dealers and gang-related activity. So as you can imagine, it could get pretty rough. It was the daytime and I was just getting ready to walk to the pool from the park, about a couple of blocks away from my house. In order to go to the park, you would need to hike up the hill by Vermont and 25th, and next to a car wash there's the pool by the park. Anyway, I got my swimsuit and bag and walked towards the pool, when all of a sudden I see this guy. He looked to be in his 30s and he had greasy black hair. He wore a white, dirty shirt with jeans. He was standing next to the bench where the children were playing in the pool, just staring in at them. What creeped me out though was when he looked up, he stared right at me. I walked faster and quickly got inside. I began my routine. The whole time as I swam in the pool, he never stopped looking at me. Keep in mind, I was wearing a one-piece swimsuit. It made me feel extremely uncomfortable. He just kept looking at me. Not even for a moment did he look away. And he had this look on his face that I had never seen on anyone else before. And honestly, it scared me. After a few hours, it was time for me to leave. I was ready to go anyway. I got out of the pool and went to go and grab my stuff when I noticed him still staring at me. This time he had his hand on his crotch. I felt both disgusted and disturbed. I grabbed my stuff and packed it up as quickly as I could, and I ran back home. To this day, that creepy guy still hangs out at the pool, watching the kids, and if I go there, he still watches me. I don't know, I feel like I'm too afraid to confront anyone about this. Number 2. Visiting Stalker. Submitted by NareBNSE. Going to see my family during the summer is fun, traveling 3 days by car getting there. We had a good 3 weeks ahead of us to spend in Nebraska. I'm from Pennsylvania. I was really excited when my aunt asked us to stay with her in Nebraska. I mean, she was a pretty good aunt. So we were already 4 days into the vacation, and I wanted to stay up late one night. I opened up my laptop and I decided to Skype my friend Brody. We talked for about 2 hours until my aunt's dog starts barking upstairs. I grab the dog and tell it to shut up. Brody and I continue our conversation, but the dog will not stop barking. This time it was probably from my sister who just came in the door. I feel a bit relieved that she's here now, but she went right to bed. It was about 2:45 in the morning. Brody and I had already finished our conversation, and as I lay there trying to go to sleep myself, the dog began barking again. At this point, I'm pissed. I want to go to sleep, I'm exhausted. Then there's this tapping on the window behind me. I was in the living room, and there is this glass window there, a large one. I'm already a bit creeped out, thanks to the dog's barking, not to mention I wasn't familiar with my aunt's place. So when I hear this tapping, I was expecting the worst. It was common for drunks to wander around this area. The place was known for it. So when I turned to look, I was expecting some drunk to be tapping at the window. Yeah, my aunt lived a little bit too close to the bar. Sure enough, in the window, there is this bald man staring in at me. I jumped out of my skin when I saw him. He looked sweaty and dirty. He was swaying about back and forth. He looked to be drunk. Then he tapped again, even though I was already looking at him. And he said, though muffled by the glass, Hey there, don't be rude to your dog. I heard everything you said to that poor thing. Just because it's barking doesn't mean it's your worst nightmare, although I am your second worst nightmare. He starts this freakish laughing as if he thinks it's the funniest thing in the world. Then he bolts away as fast as he could, looking like he's about to trip the whole time. It was a bit too dark to actually see his face much, and I wasn't entirely sure if I should call the cops or wake someone up. Sure, you might say it was just some drunk playing a prank, but this guy wanted to scare me, wanted to torment me that night. And it only makes me wonder what he might have done if there was no wall or glass separating us. Alcohol does tear away your judgment and your inhibitions. It really makes me realize that no matter where you are in the world, nothing is really safe. Nowhere is safe, unless it's in a place with people you absolutely know and trust. And the last thing you want is the same experience as this one. So be safe out there, everyone, and be sure to shut your blinds when you go to bed. Number 3. Jack in the Box Horror. Submitted by Oliviyah Ray. My sister and I went to a Jack in a Box during the summer of 2016. We got our stuff and sat at the table closest to the window. Honestly, I hated being alone in that place, and it didn't make me feel too much better being with my sister. That place was weird after all. I suddenly remembered that I should buy my mom some food to bring back home to her. So I got up to the counter, ordered her food, and rejoined my sister. By now, my sister looks frightened and weirded out. She said that this weird-looking homeless guy was staring at her. We turned around in our booth and tried to eat our food, ignoring this weird guy. But what happened next completely terrified me. Another guy ran out of there with this little girl. I thought that she was still in school because she looked like she was 5 or 6 years old. Maybe they were running out like that because they were late for school or something. We were eating there pretty early in the morning anyway. But I was terribly wrong. It took me a moment, but I remembered that that day was actually a school holiday. No one would be running to get to school. Plus the looks on their faces looked like they were creeped out, not in a hurry. I could feel knots in my stomach. Suddenly, my sister grabbed me by the arm and practically dragged me out of the place. I yanked my arm away, confused and surprised, and asked her what was wrong. She kept staring behind me, back into the restaurant. She said the father and daughter were running away from something, and that we need to leave as well. I turned around, and coming out of the doors to the Jack in a Box is that same homeless man that was looking at her. He had what looked like a knife in his hand, and he was smiling to reveal a lot of missing teeth. He was stumbling towards us slowly but surely. We ran away from him. All the while we could hear him calling her name, my sister's name, perfectly. Neither of us to this day have any idea how that man knew her name. It makes me wonder just how long has this man been watching my sister. After that, we never went back to that Jack in a Box ever again. If you ever go out like that, even when you're with somebody, always be aware of your surroundings, because there's no telling what that man could have done had we not seen him in time. Number 4. Followed to School. Submitted by ZacSwagz. I am a 13-year-old male who currently lives in London, England. This story happened a few days ago, so it's quite fresh in my mind. My journey to school every day consists of a 30-minute bus ride and a 10-minute walk. It seemed like the days were getting darker, so I normally like to walk with friends to school. But that day I was only with one friend. Let's call him Kyle. Our walk to school also consists of an alleyway, which after 10 minutes leads into a small wooded area with a path. It's kind of a strange little path, considering the moment you're out of it, it's just houses and a big school. But the place never bothered me until this day. All of my other friends wanted to go to the store across from the start of the alley, so it was just me and Kyle. We began our journey that morning. About 2 minutes in, we see a man standing next to a car on the right side of us towards the gate. The window of the car was open, and the man seemed to have his hand in the car. Kyle whispered to me, "Is he trying to steal that car?" I looked back at the man and we immediately locked eyes. We began to walk a little faster until we reached the wooded area. We felt a little better and we decided to slow down until we heard the sound of a twig snapping behind us. Now, I'm a very paranoid person and I have quick reflexes, so almost instantly, I turned a full 360 around me to see what it was, but there was nothing and I didn't see anything. As I began to look around more, I saw a figure move behind a tree. Kyle seemed not to care as he continued walking. I caught up to Kyle pretty quick, and I asked, Did you see that man?" Only for Kyle to say, "What man?" So I brushed it off. Maybe I just saw a shadow. We continued to walk until I felt a cold, uneasy feeling. I turned to see once again nothing, but I don't stop observing. I'm looking around and I finally see a figure crouch behind a bush. My parents have always warned me about stranger danger, so I immediately bolted it. Kyle didn't have any idea what was going on, but quickly followed. Stupidly, we went off the regular path. We were just running rapidly around the woods. I took out my phone only to realize I forgot to charge it the night before. I asked Kyle to take out his, but he left it at home because it was broken. We heard footsteps getting closer to us. Quickly, I looked around to see a few bushes around us, and we hid in one. I prayed to God, and Kyle looked on the verge of tears. But then, we heard the sound of a phone ring. I heard someone pick it up and start talking, and what I heard them say gives me chills to this day. Why are you calling me right now? I've got exactly what you're looking for. Just meet me in the woods by such and such. And then he hung up. It took about 3 seconds for me to realize the reality of the situation. The footsteps only got closer and closer. I closed my eyes, but then I heard it. "Hey, what are you doing?" I heard a voice call out and twigs and leaves snapping and crunching rapidly. I looked up to see an older kid from school standing in front of us, and I saw the man walking away at a fast pace. I don't know what would have happened to Kyle and myself if this older kid didn't follow us, but I do feel I learned a valuable lesson. Always be prepared for the worst. Number 5. The Stranger. Submitted by Hajin. This happened about 2 weeks ago, and it was honestly one of the most scary situations I've ever been through. So, here it is. My mom and I decided to go get a bite at one of my favorite Korean restaurants. So we decided to bring my 2-year-old sister and my 4-month-old baby brother. Once we were done eating as usual, we always went to the park right after to spend some time outside and to make sure my sister has had some sort of outside activity. We went to the nearest park that had a lake, and honestly, I'm a very cautious person. I already wanted to make sure that the park looked nice and safe. The first 20 minutes were okay and normal. I was just taking a few pictures of the scenery near the dock, and I headed back to watch my sister. As we were done and leaving, my mom was putting the baby back inside the car, and in the middle of the parking lot, I saw a bunch of seagulls together, and I wanted my sister to be a safe distance near them so I can take a few shots. But as I was taking those pictures, from the corner of my eye, I noticed a man walking towards me. I didn't think much of it, and thought he would just walk by, so I shrugged it off. Until he came to talk to me. We were about 3 or 4 feet away, and he was mumbling to me something about catching a bus. At first I wasn't scared at all, and I answered him politely until he kept asking me the same question over and over again. I kept answering him, "I'm sorry, I don't know." At this point, my heart was jumping, and I knew something was off. I couldn't even bring myself to make total eye contact with this weird guy, but I know that he was black and had little hair on the top of his head, and he had a large beard. He, again, kept asking something about a bus, now walking towards me. Freaked out, I stepped back and took a look at my sister who was behind me a little further distance away. She was just playing, not even paying attention. I panicked and I screamed my mom's name as he was still walking towards me. I started to speed walk over to my sister to get her. Then my mom suddenly screamed my name out loud. She told me that she did it to make sure that the guy knew I was not alone. My mom is a very independent and strong woman. I knew myself she had the guts to face him, yet I was still worried about her. For some reason, he was not hesitant and went straight towards my mom. Now I was even more scared. I didn't want this man near my mom when she was alone. I didn't want him to hurt any of us. I picked up my sister and quickly headed towards them. I saw that he was in front of her as she was getting her wallet out and handed him a few dollars. But I noticed, as my mom was getting her money out, he was still mumbling something, but no words were coming out. His mouth was moving as if he was talking to my mom, but there was silence. And his lips were moving really quickly though. He was quivering, it looked like. My mom handed him a couple of dollars and he ran away in another distance. I couldn't help but feel a large sense of relief. We all got in the car and I talked to her right away. "Do you think that man was on drugs, Mom?" My mother answered me. "He must be a crazy homeless man. He told me he needed to catch a bus because his family lives up in Duluth. I live in Minnesota and I was in Fridley at the moment, and it was quite far from where he needed to go." As we were leaving, we left the direction the man ran and we looked out the window. But he wasn't anywhere to be seen. I thought to myself, He could have attacked us in any second or pulled out a weapon. The situation soon faded away, but a couple of days later, I was looking through the photos I took at the park, and I noticed in the photos that I was taking of my sister with the seagulls, 2 of these photos contained the man walking from the left side corner. I didn't feel uneasy at all though. I know I most likely won't see that man again. I just hope I, and all of my family for that matter, never have to go through a worse experience than that. And number 6. Creeper in my neighborhood. Submitted by EpicIdiot221. I would like to share an encounter of mine. This happened a few weeks ago. I am a 14-year-old girl in Kentucky. I was homesick with my older sister, who is 17 years old. We had just met back up with our mom, and we wanted to go for a walk. We go for walks all the time, so she did not think twice about it. Now, we live in a bad neighborhood where most of the people are really creepy. We were just walking along when we reached the mailboxes. The mailboxes in the place I live are at the end of the road, and we always see people getting the mail. So when we saw this man, we did not think twice about it. We cut through the mailboxes and kept walking. Now, I was not sick, but I didn't like to go to school, so I'm sure like many other kids, I would try to fake illnesses to get out of school for those days. So we were walking and talking about school and friends, but that is when we heard a man yell behind us, "Hey!" We turned to see a gardener try to stop a man that is going the same way as us. My sister said maybe he is going the same way and just shook it off. I am wearing shoes, but she's not, and we kept walking until she stepped on a piece of glass and it got stuck in her foot. To our dismay, this man sped up. He realized she was hurt. He didn't act the way a person would to help, more like he was pouncing on prey. We stopped to keep an eye on him, but pretended like we were not paying attention. He got really close, so I asked out loud to my sister to make sure he could hear me, if Dad would be by soon. It took a few seconds for my sister to catch on, but when she did, she replied that he should be here in a few seconds. The man quickly walked past. It looked like he had picked up pace. Soon he was out of eyesight. We got home as quickly as possible, and we got a band-aid on my sister's foot. At home, I was wondering what this man was thinking, why he looked so strange and suspicious. I honestly didn't think I would see him again. But I have. Every so often this man is either behind us or ahead of us on the sidewalk, and of course he's staring right at us. I don't know what he wants, but to the creepy bastard following me and my sister, please let's never meet again. Oh, creepy stalkers, let's not meet. Don't let them get too close to you. Maybe they just want to tell you how they feel. Or maybe they want to knock you out with chloroform and torture you slowly in their basement. Stalkers are terrifying, so it doesn't hurt to be aware of your surroundings at all times. Good night. Be sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. And don't forget to send us your Bigfoot and sea monster scary stories. Thanks.